Let's kill that bass head. Alright, let's do this.
I'm on the air, we got this pockets flow. It's me and Tony on the mics, we gotta let you know of current events, little gaming, sprinkle in some entertainment. We stay humble, but our moms still think we're famous. Turn up the bass and baby, maybe let that magic flow. Our spoken word is all the things you really wanna know. Having a good time on the show, T-Bows and Matty G. Tune in and hit subscribe and join us on the FAPs.
Welcome everyone to the Freaking Awesome Podcast. I'm your host Anthony Bowes, and today's show has been brought to you by CR Sabers and Blue Bulls Outer Rim Saber Parts Shop for all your lightsaber needs for the customization and the best sabers on the market. Make sure you check out CR Sabers and the Blue Bulls Outer Rim Saber Parts Shop. Today, of course, we don't have Matty G with us once again. However, that's more than fine because we have an iconic guest amongst all of the musicians and someone who's probably been in your lives longer than you even know. But he is, of course, a producer, composer, and again, a iconic musician, Mr. Randy Edelman. Randy, how are you doing today?
Good.
Wonderful.
Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. Now, before we kind of really jump into things, and I got a bunch of questions for you, I do want to talk about recently, of course, you were at the Johnny Soho charity event, and you've just recently debuted a new song, of course, which is called Coming Out the Other Side.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this song has been inspired by everything that's happened with COVID and everything that's been going on. And I was very curious amongst all this, like, how has COVID impacted you personally?
To be honest with you, fortunately, not too much. In really any way, because what I do, I'm kind of locked in here by myself anyway. So it's as tragic as the whole thing is, as far as me personally, it really hasn't changed my life that much, And the song is really it's a fun thing. It's not any kind of preachy thing, and just how when it's all over, which we thought it was over a couple of months ago, but unfortunately it's not, how we're just going to go out and have a good time and get back to normal, which unfortunately hasn't really happened. But the song is just a fun thing. It's years since I've written songs. I just haven't had any time to do that kind of thing. But so I had fun with it,
Excellent. Well, I mean, I guess the one thing, of course, COVID, the upside is that it gave you a little time to write something of your own again, right? So it was.
Well, no, I was always writing something of my own, but and I still, but it's for films and movies, and I really didn't think about going back to the other thing, but the idea did come through my head, and I think, you know what, I take that back. I think you're right, because when I'm working on a film, which is not that I wasn't at the time, I was, but I had a little more time because people weren't coming over here driving me nuts like they do, because 24 hours a day with directors come by and they want to hear stuff. They weren't coming by that much. So I did have a little time to do that little ditty,
Which is wonderful. I listened to myself. I really loved it. One of the things that really kind of popped out to me instantly is it was like a beautiful mesh of almost like Elton John and Meatloaf.
I would say that previous. Well, that's great. I take that. I love Meatloaf and I loved Elton for years, and so I take that as a compliment. But basically, it's Buddy Holly, 1957, Peggy Sue. Now, a lot of people may not get that, but that's what that is. Other stuff I had done years ago, I would have thought were more kind of an analogy to what you said. But I'm perfectly happy with what you said. It's just that this, for me, as far as the sound, first of all, I did everything myself. There's nobody playing on it but me. And I did it all back where you're looking at me now. I did it all back here myself, and I was having fun and screaming and yelling. And to be honest with you, I didn't think like, oh, I'm going to finish this thing and then I'm going to put a record out. It was just like a fun thing. And then it sounded pretty good. So, I played it for a couple of people and they all said, yeah. So, but it's a little different for what I had done in my quote life as an artist songwriter years ago, which I hadn't done because I got into doing something that for me was far more rewarding and took up over 20 years of my time every day.
Mm.
Luckily, fortunately for me. So
Yeah.
I never even told people that I was a songwriter. And it's been kind of an odd thing. Now you'll say, well, hold it just a minute. Certain people knew, but film directors and producers, I was just like the new guy in town. Of course, I wasn't a new guy in town, but so actually that worked for me, to be honest with you, because once
Yeah.
you get kind of stigmatized as a songwriter, you're not going to be able to score anything,
Yeah, it's true. That's kind
Because
of nice that you've kind of reversed that process, right? So it's a
I
nice surprise
reversed.
for
Yeah,
everybody.
you got, and you got to be, it's just like anything else. When the opportunity comes, you got to be able to do it. So it's a very pressured political kind of area, and you have to have the musical chops to be able to do it. So I was fortunate that I had all my kind of conservatory training years before I ever made records. That was just a fluke that I even got into that when I got out of school. So the whole thing worked out fine. So
Yeah.
shoot, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's it's fantastic. And like I said, I guess the reason why I kind of compared it to both is because you have so much power in your voice, very much like Meatloaf, and the song itself, it sounds so much like something Elton John would put out as a theme for a movie. So like it had a beautiful mesh between the two of them, and of course you've got
Well,
all that movie experience, so it really worked out well.
yeah, no. You know what? I'm taking everything you're saying, and it's great that you're saying it. As far as my voice, I haven't sung in a million years, so it's strong because I haven't used it. And and yeah, see, to me, this is a very, very, very musically, completely basic thing. So when whereas my film scores have been much more musically complex. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like I almost want to fight with you over what you're saying, but I'm absolutely not. It's great that you're getting all that from this thing. And you know what? A lot of people, I'm different, because I know what I've done and musically how I've progressed. That's not saying there's anything wrong with what that track and that song is. It's just that for me, musically, it's a very simple rock and rolly pop basic thing, which I
Yeah.
haven't done in years. But and the great thing about it, and even when I listen to it, I haven't listened to it lately, but obviously when I was doing it, it sounded to me very different than all the many artist songwriter albums that I made before I ever scored a film. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
but I'm very happy that you feel that way, and
Yeah.
everything you're saying is great.
It's good
Yeah,
energy, and
yeah, it's
it,
good.
it's
You know what? It's good energy, and it says the right things, and it has a passion in it and a fun in it. I mean,
mhm.
there's a time there's a place in the record. I don't know if you've played it or not, but yeah, you've played. But where
Yeah.
I'm screaming and laughing, and I kept it all. And I only did. By the way, I did one vocal, one
Oh,
take,
really?
zip. That's it, as a guide,
Yeah.
and that was it. And I did that laughing thing, and I said, "Here we go," and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, no,
So the
it's
spirit
fantastic,
is
and
there. It's not
yeah.
anything I tried to do. It was just inherent in that idea and the style that I wanted. When I said Peggy Sue, Buddy Holly, even though that was, I remember when I was a kid and I heard that kind of 16th note guitar thing. Well, that's not in there. I'm doing it on a drum back here. But I was
Mhm.
trying to emulate that feeling when I was a kid and I heard that. And of course, in those days, like, how the hell did they do that with that guitar? There's no synthesizers or quantizing or anything. Somebody's actually playing it.
That's
So
right.
that's the feeling I wanted. And once, and I knew the song existed, it could have been in a little simpler kind of format and it would have still been fine.
Mhm.
But that to me was the thing. I had this idea in my head and I wanted to pull that off. And once I thought I had that and could convey that feeling, then I thought, hey, this is really good. And then I'll play it for somebody. And
Yeah.
that's what I did.
Well, and it was a wonderful job, and we'll make sure, of course, that we post it up on our site after the show for everybody else to listen to and enjoy it. Because I'd be actually interested to hear from our viewers / listeners their opinion on it as well, and what they take from it. Because I remember often, and it's not to date myself as well, but I loved Peggy Sue and Richie Valens and a lot of the what they say singers of kind of older times, and it's there was a very uniqueness, and like I said earlier, an energy that they brought to things that I think you really encapsulated to it. So it was really good. I really enjoyed that. So so that kind of brings me over to of course your musical scores. As I kind of posted up on a promo card for people to look at, you have been in you've done work for so many movies, and it's such a long list, and one of the things I love actually is if we really want to jump back a little bit in time, not only have you done the music for today's MacGyver, but you started with the original MacGyver back from the 80s.
No. I only did the original MacGyver.
Oh, really? So they've just replayed it into the new ones.
Yeah, forget. There is no new one. That's MacGyver. You're trying to tell me there's a different guy than that Richard Dean guy that we did a million years ago? No, that's it. This other thing. It was on for a while. I have no problem with it. It's not no. I would have never ever gotten involved in that. It's like done that, been there. Never ever did the pilot of that show, and everybody hated it. And wrote the theme. And did that and left and went back, and no one ever thought it would ever be picked up as a show. And then it went on for years and years. And of course, I wrote that theme, and that's a whole story in itself. But what that was good for, everything you do that I've learned at this point in the business, I kind of look back, and that was writing tons of music overnight. I'm talking about, and I left it because I always, I was like, Beethoven and Mozart and Mahler. There was no orchestrator or copyist for them. They wrote a piece and they orchestrated it and wrote it. That was part of it. Right. And when I say I was the same way, I always arranged, orchestrated, conducted everything for myself when I did my albums. So when I got this show, I had done other shows. Well, when you're in that situation and they pick up a show, and a show like that, which has music every second, it's an hour, quote, dramatic show. That means there's about 48 or 47 minutes of film, 13 minutes are commercials, and they want 45 minutes of music, and it's due the next day. You can't do that. You got to get a bunch of schmucks in the back room. Well, I didn't care at the time. I wasn't going to do that. And of course, I hung myself in a way at the time because I was taking, Dexedrine or stuff that people, to stay up. I was never into drugs but I had to stay up. So it turned out to be a very interesting experience. But what I learned, and then when I got done with that and I left after a while, the second or third season, I left it after the first season, halfway through the first season. Then they kept picking it up. Of course, they were using my theme, so that was great. But when I left it, I said to myself, you know what? I'm out of this. I'm not suited to write music for a picture. I'll just go back to my solo songwriting, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, how do things happen? 3 years later, I'm the busiest film composer in the world for years and years and years. You just don't know. So the reason I'm telling you this is what I got was, if someone tells you have to write 40 minutes of music, literally overnight, and then you get into doing feature films and they say, sorry, Randy, you only have 3 weeks to write a half-hour music. Guess what? That sounds pretty good.
Right.
So all of these experiences, you think that they're terrible, this or that, are always, good. They have a place if you're fortunate enough to have a continuing story, especially in this business, and one like I have. Everything is there, and so that was really a great experience to know that I had been under that kind of gun, and that I could do it, good or bad. I'm not making a statement on the quality, but I burned it out. And so you know, like I said, well, actually a very short time, a few years later, when I got into doing feature films and everything, and I was presented with something which everybody said, oh, sorry, you know, you don't have a lot of time. And they'd say that, I would kind of think of MacGyver, you know, which, by the way, was still running year after year after year. And it had my theme. And I, thank God, I didn't have to, I wasn't involved at all. They just obviously were using my theme.
They just used it. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure because like I said, I was looking at the IMDb and it shows that, of course, that you're still on. Of course, they're carrying that.
You know what? No, I think, you know what? By the way, yeah, you can't believe anything you see on the internet with this stuff, because what that is you're absolutely right. And you're, by the way, I'm not correcting you. It probably says there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't involved, and they didn't use my theme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is.
It's really funny that you said, because I mean, to me, Richard Dean Anderson, Michael Tavares, that's always the original, MacGyver for me. I remember, I think I even tried watching the first episode, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get into it, and which is unfortunate.
That's like trying to take. You
Right.
can't. I was surprised. Well, I didn't really know about it, but when I found out they were going to do a new thing, and it did go on evidently a while, and that's great.
Yep.
But it, you know, and this guy, the guy that played the role, who was in it in the pilot, and everybody hated it, they liked him. And as a matter of fact, the writer, originator, producer of that show took his name off the pilot. He hated it so much and left and never came back. So that shows you. But at the time, it's different now. But the networks, you know, they'd make these pilots, they'd make 1 million, and like, you know, 1% of them actually were made into shows. But they liked Ricky Dean, and that's what, and it was true. He was likable, and everybody loved the guy, and he, you know, that's what he did. But anyway, that was one little incident in my life years ago. So let's move on.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. Like you said, it kind of really sets you up for when all of a sudden you get into movie scores, and they're just like, oh, it's only 3 weeks, and you're just kind of like, I begrudgingly accept.
I mean,
No, so that's really cool. I was actually watching the other day. You've got a kind of the producer's track to Ghostbusters 2, that opening sequence, and it was really interesting listening to your thoughts behind that. Again, when you've got the music building up with the whole Sigourney Weaver and the carriage that's, of course, going down, and the ghost is kind of taking it through the street.
The thing they put up with me talking?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, they just, you know what, we just did that, you know, literally, I can say a couple of weeks ago. Okay, it wasn't a couple of this, maybe 2 months ago. Yeah, and that's a whole story in itself. Why is Sony Classics, the best label there is, if you write film scores, they don't do that many, putting out the first time my huge score to Ghostbusters 2, 30 years later, you know, and that's a whole story. But again, I haven't even thought about it in a million years, that thing. And then over the years, it's come up, but I've been busy doing things. And it wasn't like every day I got up and said, Jesus, how am I going to get that score released? Because they released an album with songs, and there were no songs really in the movie, only my score, except for, like, you know, a few in the end credit and the old song, you know, at the beginning of the movie. So I just, at the time, I had just kind of started doing this stuff. So it wasn't like I could walk in and say, hey, that's ridiculous. Like, you're putting out a soundtrack for music that's not in the movie, you know. But anyway, I didn't. I just moved on, you know. So
it's amazing you say that, actually, because
eventually these things come around, and here it is. Yeah, and they did a great job. Unfortunately, they lost half the music. You know. How could you possibly? The sequel to the biggest comedy of all time, same people in it. Wasn't like one of these sequels that's, it was all same director, same cast, same writers, but things happen. So I had to figure out a way to meld the whole thing together, which hopefully I did, and it's out, and it's terrific that it's out after all these years. I can't believe all these years have been by, and that music has been basically, if I could point your camera, sitting in a little drawer right behind me.
Oh, really?
On a cassette, by the way.
Oh,
you hear what I'm saying?
Yep. God, I love cassettes. I still miss them.
And thank God I had that cassette.
Yeah, it's
Cassettes don't even play after 15 years, and that's true. Luckily, this one did.
That's amazing. It's really interesting because I guess I never really put a lot of thought into it, but I do remember specifically back in that time period where movies would come out, they released the soundtracks, and I'm thinking, I don't remember this being on the movie, and it's true, like you said, it's just like somehow they pulled songs out of nowhere.
If it was a song, it could have been source music coming out of a bar, long, and that justified it. Listen, each case was different, but in the case, even Elmer scored.
Oh, I think I just lost your audio there, Randy.
But I won't. Yeah, no. Somebody call me. What'll happen?
Oh, okay.
Okay, I hung up on it.
Yeah.
It's even so. I was saying, even Elmer Bernstein's fantastic score to the first Ghostbusters, which was the music to the film. They got at the last minute this thing, which was great, from Ray Parker Jr. or whatever, but it had nothing to do with the films about these guys and a supernatural quality to it,
Yeah.
And what happened? It was years later, I think. I don't know that much about it, and I did not, as much as I love Elmer Bernstein, many scores, including that one, I never referred to it. I never watched the movie when I was writing Ghostbusters. I didn't watch the first one. I didn't reference it. I just took it as a standalone movie to that specific story in the sequel, which is obviously had somewhat the same thing because these guys were trying to catch ghosts. So, but I don't think they released his score for a number of years to that, So it happens, and same thing happened with the movie that got me started in this stuff with Ivan Reitman, a movie called Twins. They released it. There was no soundtrack. I had a cut or something, and but so those things happen. But you do the score, and it just is intense. How much time do you have to write it? You have as much time as they tell you. If it's a week, it's a week. If it's 2 months, it's 2 months. So you got to do it depending on when you enter it and when you get involved. But and then you kind of leave it, and they mix it and mess it up or don't mess it up, and then you move on. So I never really had a lot of time to visit those kinds of situations, whatever it was. And then after I got going, every score I did always had a full. They only wanted my soundtrack, and that's the only thing on there. Once in a while, they'd ask me, "Can we put this song in?" And if it was important to the film, I'd say, "Sure, I don't care."
Yeah, yeah. We actually have a question here from one of our listeners. Beth Wheaton has asked, "How did you adapt to technological advances with composing music?"
I'm a lot of people don't know. I'll answer that directly in a second, but because I did all these albums and wrote songs, they think I come out of pop music. It couldn't be more. There is nobody like me around here. I'm a conservatory graduate, a concert pianist, so I have the most serious background you could have. It was only a fluke, that I kind of got into that whole pop music thing. I always loved pop music and stuff on the radio, but it was a fluke. Okay, so getting back to what she's asking me, the reason is, was it Beth? I don't know what her name was. I can't see it anymore. So I was not one of these guys, synth guys, or I wasn't up with that stuff. I was still sitting at the piano years after this stuff, came into being, not anywhere like it is now. It was the early kind of stuff. So, of course, when I started scoring, well, I had to adapt because there was no more cutting tape as far as editors. It was all digital. The music, you got a digital. So I had to learn everything, which was, by the way, just a blast. And of course, the technology, it's incredible. You couldn't lock the music to a picture, and it always would be right 100% of the time, unless they change the picture. You can't miss. You can make a mistake in what you're doing, and it can be terrible. But as far as timing and stuff, so there were just so many advantages of the technology, and I had to learn, and I started with I mean, not before the computer, a click thing that I forgot, a sequencer,
Yeah.
and then you get a computer, and then of course all the different advances in synthesizers and samplers and technology. You just got to be right with it because everybody else is doing it. And
Yeah.
directors, by the way, are used to coming to your house and no longer in the days. I don't know how these guys, all these brilliant scores that were written in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s of composers. Well, composers only had a piano, and if they were big, a moviola. How did they show the director with a? Well, they couldn't until they got in front of a full orchestra on a soundstage. Now, obviously, you do mock-ups with your stuff of cues, and guess what? If they don't like it here in my room, they're not going to like it with the London Symphony at Abbey Road because
Mhm.
the likeness is fantastic. It may
Yeah.
not be the real thing. In many cases, they get used to it. And when you do the real thing, they don't like it. They like what they heard in your room because it has a little different texture to it. So
Okay. Yeah.
the point is you're under the gun because of the technology. But yes, I had to keep up with it. And I still do. I'm still, 40 years behind the times because I'm not, I get everything, but
Yeah.
that is not my forte is music. I still write stuff down. I conduct my own scores. I play everything,
Mhm. Mhm.
on keyboards, and then I do it. But I've had to keep up with it. And there's good things about it. And then there's also drawbacks about it, like
Mhm.
people coming over wanting to hear their whole score before you've technically scored it. I mean, they
Yeah.
want to hear a scene, and then you say, well, it's going to be a little there, So you every anybody that does this kind of work, everybody has to figure out how they're going to deal with it with
Mhm.
this person who in feature films, television is different with producers and studios and networks, but with films it's only one person, really. It's the director, and each
Mhm.
of these guys on every film is a different person, different background, different, what they like, what they hear. So that's part of this game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
somehow in this pressured political, horrible game, you are able to do, no doubt about it, the best job there is in the world. You're writing music, and hopefully you're getting those magic places that you can get in a movie that you create, not when the guy is here screaming in your ear at three
Mhm.
in the morning, when you're looking at what he shot and you come up with something, and baby, you know it right away.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky enough, and that ends up, because then they take your music when you say you're done, and they take it on a scoring, not a scoring stage, you're done scoring, on a mixing stage with the sound effects and the dialogues. And well, guess what? They cannot use a cue. They can play it so soft that you can't hear it. They can take separate tracks of it, which now you have to do these days, and completely change the character of it. So
Mhm.
you're when you hear something that's sort of like has the magic that you felt at that moment, and you kind of say, "Hey, this is going to be good." That's when you're happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you never know because you're at the whim of other people, and you're never there when they do it.
Yeah.
That's You learn that early on. I used to try to go and be quote helpful on the mixing stage. They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear me anything. You know.
Yeah. Now, did
So
you find, just speaking of like when people would come to your place and they would listen to it, and now did you find because of technology that people just couldn't envision everything together? Was it like very frustrating for you? And of course, you're just like, how can you not imagine this? Like,
no,
here's
no,
a
no, no,
piece, and I,
no. Oh no, 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 no. I'll leave. I'm leaving something out. They imagine everything. They've already done all the music to a film when I come in. It's called a temp score. And that
okay,
is the music that they live with and use for the whole process, not your score that comes in the last second of a film, which has a
okay,
20-year history. The stupidest movie in the world that you may think, oh, that's a still, may have a 25-year-old story. Somebody bought a book. If somebody was going to star in it, they backed out. The studio put it in turnaround. Someone else bought it. They changed it. They hated it. It sat on a shelf. You have no idea.
Mhm.
It could be the best. You think, oh, that's true of the really quality period wonderful dramas. No, each one of these movies that gets a green light, which most of them don't,
Mhm.
has a story, has a history. And so you're the last person in. And after they shoot that movie, the editor and the director, they take their dailies, they put the scenes together, and they start with their temp score. And it used to be years ago, wow, if you want to, you know what, let's try a Mahler symphony there. Let's try a Rolling Stones track there. I'm talking about any and everything since the beginning of time. And guess
Mhm.
what? That was a problem. They had to bring in like a music supervisor type. Guess what? There's no problem now. You press a button. You want a Mahler symphony? Which one? Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't like the second. Let's try the sixth. You want a Rolling Stone track? Boom. Brown Sugar. Oh no, I didn't mean that. I meant the other one. Boom. It's there. I'm obviously overstating the simplicity. That's how fast it is. And
Mhm.
they listen to that music. It's not like, oh, a temp score sounds like, oh, it's just some music they threw in. No. And then when they preview that movie for the studios or
Mhm.
for a public preview, that's the music that plays. So don't you think by the time they get to my doorstep, you think that music, every scene, there are 50 something cues in a movie that comes up, they don't have an idea. So you just getting back to what you asked of
Mhm.
what each cue should sound like emotionally, sonic wise, orchestral, hip, R&B, whatever it is. No, they have a vision of exactly what it sounds like because guess what? They want it to sound like that.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
another problem of
I was gonna
ours.
say that must make it things really difficult for you because
Yeah,
you're trying to fight
because
something, but it's like, but you can't use
you're
that.
you're trying to write an original score, but
Mhm.
that's the always the way I put it. Someone would say, "Well, are you copying that?" Of course not. But once, in a serious movie, so once a mood is set, that music can set for a scene that needs enhancement, be it
Mhm.
anything. If you don't set that mood, this director is looking at you like, so what do you do? That's part of our job to,
Yeah. Yeah.
because when you come up and you say, that music that you there, I got a much better idea.
Mhm.
That ain't ever going to fly. Don't say that. You can
Yeah.
play something, but if you say you have a different idea, he'll know in a second. It's not that. So a lot of times I'll write 2 or 3 cues, completely different musical for the same scene. And you may say,
Okay.
if it's the same scene, how many different, you know what? You can write a million different ideas for same scene and it be true to what the scene is. It's just a
Mhm.
different way of going about it. So this is what we all have to deal with. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's sort of uncreative, but on the contrary, it's extremely creative. And it's a little game you're playing. But
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
end, this guy's going to get what he wants,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's not going to use it. A lot of times, um, there'll be a scene, and they won't have music. And believe me, they spent a lot of time deciding that they didn't want music. Trust me, in wherever it is.
Mhm.
Now you come in and you say, you know what? I think that could use something. And you write something. And it's obvious that it works. And then you go on the scoring stage with an orchestra and all your synths and you do it. And it's like the best fucking cue in the movie. And then you go to see the the movie. And guess
Yeah.
what?
They've
It's not
taken it
ever
out.
there.
Yeah.
They take it out.
Oh, gee.
But guess what?
Mhm.
Yes, it's like I'll give you an example of it. It's almost 99. But I had to learn that. It's just that what it is they got scared. See, I like movies to score movies that
Mhm.
got a
Mhm.
real low preview score. If you
Okay.
do a movie and it gets like an 82, that's high.
Mhm. Mhm.
They don't want to change anything. They don't even want to change where the music goes. Granted, it's all your new music, but blah blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I like movies that do terribly. They get like a 38 because then we got a problem. So it's not going to be me who's blamed.
Yeah.
But this is what happens. But the funny thing is, if I really think the cue is great, I will always, always, always include it on my soundtrack. My soundtrack album has nothing to do with what's in the movie. It's obviously 95% of it. It is music that's in the movie. But if I write something, I'll put it in. And you know what? I won't even tell you about the use. The people who have used those cuts that are on my soundtrack, and they're, of course, reminiscent. They have something to do with the tone of that movie.
Yep.
And my things are all over the place because those cuts are used more than anything on that soundtrack. I mean, you know, not always, but it's interesting. So, you know, that's the stuff you deal with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely feels like it's such a very complex kind of a system to it. And like you'd said before about it being having to be creativity, I mean, I feel like part of that creativity is just having to roll and you almost have to work to change their mind, which is an art in itself, right?
Yeah, but unfortunately, you don't have time. There's not a lot of time.
That's right.
Hey, listen,
you're under a crunch.
I could spend a year on every score, and it wouldn't be enough time. The scores are like writing operas. I mean, you're writing over an hour of music for these things, and so you gotta, you know, and if you can't look the wrong way, and they pick up on your attitude. You know, it's a real crapshoot. And by the way, no matter, you may say, yeah, but after you've done, look at these credits and all these hits and different kinds of genres, from Last of the Mohicans to My Cousin Vinny to you know, a Triple X and you know, 27 Dresses, or so, all different kinds of comedies and action and drama.
That's right.
No, every film, it's like you're the new guy, you're joining this family, and show us, buddy, what you can do. You can't sit on a last score or anything. And and by the way, a lot of times maybe they've used a temp score and used a lot of your previous scores. Now you would say, oh, that's a pretty good way of someone coming to you to do their film because they like what you do. So sometimes in those cases, that's good because you're on the same wavelength. But then you don't want to imitate yourself.
That's right. Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22
so
almost.
it's all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like you said, it's such a different, you know, you look at the emotional impact of the music, like The Last of Mohicans, and then you turn things around and you look like the comedy of like The Mask, right? Where you're looking at a completely different upbeat kind of, you know, it's such a different thing. So if they're looking at it,
and when you know, a lot of people, I hope you won't ask me, and it doesn't, because I won't answer it anyway, but a lot of people ask me like, you know, what's your favorite score you've done, blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, each one is different. And what happens is whatever you're, just as important as the music you wrote is the experience that you had with this director on all these films. You say The Mask, where does it take me? It takes me to Ireland. You say, Ireland, why? Because that's where I scored The Mask. And you say, why? They had no money. It was a nothing. And they said, here's your $10. Therefore, you know, non-union. Okay, I'll take the $10. And guess what? I go wherever the hell I want to go. You can't tell me where to go. I'll take the $10. If I spend more, it's out of my pocket. And don't tell me where to go, which is what happened. But by the time we were scoring that movie, that other picture had come out. I didn't even know who Jim Carrey was. My 5-year-old had to drag me down to see Ace Ventura Pet Detective because he used to watch the show in living color in his bedroom when he was 5 years old. And but anyway, and then I see this guy, you know, I always respond to true talent. So you see this guy, you know, this is a talented guy. I'm doing this just by seeing one scene. I'm going to do this movie. I don't care if they didn't have any money or blah, blah, blah. Well, by the time I had scored it and it came out, it was obviously going to be the big picture, you know, following Ace Ventura. So, but the reason I'm saying that is, you know, you say that, and of course I think of the music I wrote and all those great scenes with this guy going around with his green face and everything. But it's sort of the whole experience, the music, the traveling, the orchestra, the director, the shit that went on. It's all of that that goes into my reminiscence of that score. And that's why when people say, what's your favorite score? Gettysburg, what is Gettysburg about? It was great. Guess what? It's about this one fantastic man by the name of Ted Turner. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's why I did it. I didn't want to write 18 hours of music for some originally a TV new TNT thing that he started after he slept on a cot for 20 years and tried to convince people to watch a 24-hour news station. They thought he was crazy, called CNN. So this was after that. But just so when you say that, yeah, of course I think about the music I wrote, and when it's played on the 4th of July, Memorial Day, now kind of replacing the 1812 thing with all these symphonies in this country. But what do I think of? I think of Ted. What a fabulous guy,
Wow,
and interesting and just one of a kind. That's what I think. You asked me about, my cousin Vinny. I'll tell you something. You'd think, oh, I'm going to talk about. No, I'm going to talk about something completely different. I'm not going to get into it. What I'm saying is each one of these things, and that's what's left with me. Things that people would say, oh, I may respond a lot differently with a lot of different films that they may not even know than the ones that they think I'm going to say that were the biggest hits.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone has a different story, which, by the way, is great. Even though at the time you say, "Oh my God, I went crazy. I did this." That's what I think of.
Yeah, and it's truly fascinating. I actually wish, and I think this is for anybody else out listening there, or something you want to do yourself. But this is something that should be a Netflix or an Amazon Prime thing, where it's just your stories, the music, and what the thought behind those music, or where it actually came from, because that's the real interesting things, right? I mean, the pieces are beautiful, and people want to reminisce or romanticize where they believe it comes from. But the real story is what was in your mind at the time.
Right. And the real story is the music, which is playing to a very specific image. But the music, you're absolutely right. The music that's playing, guess what's involved in that? Everything I'm talking about. And that's all besides. Does the music go perfectly, hopefully, or with the emotionally, with the scene, whether it's a comedy or drama or action picture? Yeah. But there's a lot behind what's going on. And all of what was going on in my life and with the personalities involved at the time is involved with every note and sound that you hear in every cue in that particular film. So yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know how you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's to be honest with you, that's what all these things are. They're not just about what you hear and see. You hear and see only what you know, which is what you see and what you hear. But I know a lot more. And even though it's the same thing that came out in the end, how I got there, or one little melodic structure or rhythmic feeling or sound, is imitating something that I was experiencing at the time. And hopefully, by the way, I'm not the only. That's the way I'm sure it is with most, really experienced people who do this crazy thing to make a living.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I think that partially you probably are right. I feel like there's a lot of people that have or go through that exact same experience. But I would imagine, because your work is so much more classically inspired as opposed to new age tech and stuff like that, I don't know. I think that there's a lot more that's going on behind the music in your head that I think people would find truly fascinating to know where that background story is. So think about that.
Right.
I think that could be like a 20 episode show or whatever, where you just go through things and rap about it.
It would be a lengthy exercise to say the least. But who knows?
No, I definitely think it's absolutely fantastic, phenomenal concept behind it, and just knowing that there is more behind the music than meets the eye, and your scores are. It truly is. It's almost like the emotional glue that holds every film together, right? If you don't have a good soundtrack or a good score behind it, it loses feeling, and it's like the musical stunts of movies, right? Clearly musicians don't get enough credit for what is happening behind the scenes.
Right.
And with
Well,
your
and
music,
hopefully,
it's
I mean,
amazing with that.
what you're doing, hopefully, is the idea is to support the vision of this person who you don't know. But you say, well, it's great to meet you, but they always say, well, they have to talk. You don't have to talk that much. I'm looking at it. So if you hired me, then if you trust me, I'm not coming there from left field. This isn't something in a vacuum. I have what you did in front of me. You shot it, you edited it, you tweaked it, you put a little temp music maybe in, good or bad. It's all there. I never even have to see you, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
To be, seriously, that sounds terrible, but that's just the way, I got it. And if I don't got it, I have a problem, or I shouldn't be doing this. It's not, it's, but you don't have to be, if you have the right kind of soul and musical sense to be doing this, then you can't, if you don't have that, you can't do this. Because with this stuff, I always say you have to be fast and right. You can't be fast and you write the wrong thing, or you can't be slow and write the right thing. You got to look, get a sense of it, and do something. And of course, if you're still sitting here, and you're on your own schedule, you have X amount of time to write X amount of minutes of music. And if you don't come up with it on that first day, guess what? You wake up that second day and you're already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
You better keep up with it. And you have to make yourself, it's like other things. You said you have to put your pencil on the paper and write. And you got to do it. You got to get something down. It's like a writer that's right, And if you don't, now you can go back and you can work on it and tweak it and edit it, but you better come up with those basic, strong ideas.
Yeah.
Pretty much on that first take, so to speak, when you're looking at it, because
and
you just don't have the time.
Yeah. And there's so many complex levels of film, right? Because you've got the writer's kind of vision behind things, you got the director's vision behind things, you got the actors doing their thing, and then on top of all that, you have the character, right? So the unspoken person is that character out there who's doing their thing. So you're stitching that all together. And encompassing that in film.
In the end, everything you're saying is true, but in the end, what I have in front of me is all that. Now, what went into what I'm looking at, just like you said, what goes into the music I'm writing. Yeah, there's a lot that went into it, but I only can get the vision that came out of it.
That's right.
Where the writer and the actors and the sets and the scenery and the editing and everything, I only can get what that is in the end, which this director put in place. And there's a lot of stuff, a lot of different ways that a movie can be assimilated, and ways that the nuances of and the textures of it can be kind of manipulated to change things. And then you got the music on top of it, and the music is supposed to then put the real glue onto whatever, after all that he or she did, that's going to cement what they were trying to get across. And many times there isn't any music necessary, and that's fine too. But the music is supposed to add a level that, or the best, that nothing else could, because it's an unspoken thing, and one sound can change the mood of something. It doesn't have to be, 100 musicians. It could be.
And it's interesting you say that, because I find the most emotional scenes in a movie are not what happens between the actor and the actress. It's the music. It's the music that grabs people and makes them cry. It's the music that makes them happy, because you have taken those characters, but you've given love and passion and everything that is supposed to be in that scene through a musical score.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Absolutely amazing. Just amazing. Okay, we've got a couple questions here for you that are just things that we like to throw in towards the shows for our audience to get to know you a little bit better as a person. So the man behind the music. We've got a first question for you would be, what is the scariest dream you've ever had?
Scariest dream I've ever had. Probably the one when I was a little kid, I used to be on my way to kindergarten. I swear to God. See, this comes right up, so you know I'm not bullshitting you. And I walk into the school, and all of a sudden, some hole opens up in the ground, and I fall in the hole, and all the dirt comes in. Now you know why I'm claustrophobic. That's the first thing. That, and there was another one when I went to see a picture when I was a kid called The House of Wax.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
have no idea who would take me to see that, but I slept with the blankets over my head till I was at least 25 or something.
Wow.
Those are two I remember. You know.
Excellent. No, those are fantastic. If you could have a superpower, what superpower would you have?
Well, superpower of keeping my energy level to where I think it should be, both in terms of my creativity, obviously my health, but you know, I don't know if that's a superpower. It's just that I would like to keep it on a level that I could always have at least the passion and creative energy to continue writing music, which is what I do. You know, that's the only thing I know how to do.
That's a fantastic superpower. I don't think anybody's ever said something like that, so it's great. What makes you happiest?
What makes me happiest? Well, there's a lot of things. People who I know, my family, my friends, but really, what makes me happiest is the same thing that made me happiest since I was 5, and that's sitting here, sitting at the piano, writing music without dealing with anybody. And when I was a kid, it really wasn't a thing, because I didn't ever know if I could. I didn't even know what I would do, but it was to try to figure out a way how I could spend my life sitting behind the piano, coming up with stuff. Didn't know about film scores or records or anything, and not go to a job every day. And I managed to pull the wool over everybody's eyes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's there are other greater things to aspire to, but as far as I sit back here, the rest of the world goes by. I'm doing what I'm doing, and
living the dream, like truly.
Yeah. It's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of hard work, a lot of things, as in everybody's life, but just to be able to be still standing and having a blast and coming up with different, something, going to sleep at night and having something that didn't exist at 8 o'clock in the morning when you got up. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Very, very cool. If you could go and live through any decade, and it's something you don't have to have lived in, what decade would you choose?
I guess I'm going to have to say this one.
Okay, excellent.
Because as romantic as it would be, I could say any number of years in any number of places in the world, and I've been to most of them. I guess, now through the changes in technology and seeing what's happened, my God, when I think about it, when you think about what kids now, God, what's going to be happening 50 years from now? Can't imagine. But and there are drawbacks, and you can always say, "Oh boy, this, God, look at these negative things from some of the quote, advances in technology and everywhere else." Still, this is probably the best time to live in.
Yeah.
This is definitely the best country to live in. These are things I never really thought about, to be honest with you. I didn't come from a terribly patriotic background or a family that celebrated certain things. It's just that, you realize this stuff. So I would say now, and here, because I've been fortunate, I've seen it every place else.
Yeah.
And though it's romantic to think about, oh, wouldn't it have been great to live in the Middle Ages? Yeah. However, there was lots of stuff that wasn't that great. So
that's right.
I would say,
yeah, no, that's good. Now it's good. All right. So one of our personal favorites is, do you believe in aliens?
I think I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's something's out there.
Yeah.
Something's got to be out
right?
there. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what form they take. I don't know if some of these, but yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. What gets on your nerves?
What gets on my nerves? Ooh. Well, there's a list of things. I like to be as honest as I can. I don't like, I like to kind of say it like it is, maybe from my New Jersey background, the area of New Jersey I'm from, which is like the concrete jungle, Bergen County. I'm not from the area of New Jersey like that. It's called the Garden State. I never knew exactly. I'm not from that area. Or where Jackie Kennedy used to have some kind of horse farm where she used to go to jump her horses. And I was a kid, I would go like, where the heck is that? I'm not from there. But I like being on time always. It's part of being a professional musician. And I like to do things pretty much, according to a plan, not things that are too flexible. And I like to follow whatever that plan is, whether it's in music or otherwise.
Okay, excellent. All right, a couple more questions here for you. And, okay. So this one's always a fun one. If you could get rid of a holiday off the calendar, which holiday would you eliminate?
Well, you're not talking about Jewish holidays.
No, well, it could be any holiday, but it's really up to you. This is your call.
No, you know what? I don't know, because I don't want to. Years ago, I would have said, something, and it turns out these are important days. Holidays. I don't know. I mean, there really aren't that many holidays. I mean, for instance, now it's kind of like appropriate now to say it, like Columbus Day. I could have gotten rid of that holiday,
Yep. Yeah. No.
Now,
that's fair.
Years later, there's like more of kind of political reasons, but yeah, that's a holiday. But I'm trying to think of another one that, Labor Day. What was Labor Day? What was that celebrating? I mean, that had nothing to do with, but anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I guess you look forward to it because you got a holiday, a long, weekend when school was starting, but I don't know. I'm not going to say to you that these questions are kind of, okay, go ahead. It's your show. It's your show. You could have spent this time on something which you did. You did a lot of good stuff. So
now this is a little bit more fun stuff to know you. So.
You got
we're kind of at that end of the show, and I gotta say, I super loved a lot of the things that you had to say. I'd love to know a lot more about things behind the scores, which was amazing, and I super love the new song that's out. So we'll make sure we put that up on our website for people to look at, as well as under the guest page of our website. Do you have any social media or anything that you'd like to pitch before we go?
You can, my website is just www.randyedelman.com, and anything, I always say this, and I just discovered this recently. You could just go to YouTube and you can press up any song, any score, or you press up the score and the score comes up, and then you see the different pieces you may want to hear. So you go there and you can hear everything you want.
It's true. Yeah. If you just YouTube Randy Edelman, you'd be amazed what comes up.
And just go, now it's so easy. You just press your name up and a bunch of shit comes up.
And there you are. Excellent. Well, I've super
All right.
appreciated all your time, Randy. I love it. Keep up all the amazing stuff, and I look forward to seeing what else you have. And
Thank you.
hopefully we can circle back around and have you back on the show at some point, because clearly you
Absolutely.
have a lot to talk about. So it's amazing.
Okay. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you very
Take
much.
care.
Have yourself a wonderful evening, and thanks to all
too.
our listeners for all
Okay.
the questions. Take care. Bye.